Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating historical and theological timeline. If you ask most people, they'll probably tell you Islam started in the 7th century over in Arabia. But what if we look at how the faith actually defines itself? By digging into authentic texts, we're going to trace its roots way, way back and uncover a story that literally stretches to the dawn of human history. So that brings up a really crucial question. Did Islam actually just pop out of nowhere in the 7th century? Well, we're going to shatter that misconception right out of the gate. According to its own foundational texts, Islam wasn't some sudden invention. Nope. It's actually presented as the continuation of a single, unbroken thread of pure monotheism. It's a shared, deep-rooted belief in one God that intimately connects it with both Judaism and Christianity. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our structured roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with the ancient origin, then move into Abraham and pure monotheism, look at the first revelation, explore those deep ties to earlier revelations, and wrap it all up with the final monotheistic message.
All right, part 1, the ancient origin. Let's get right into it.
Now, if we look at the literal meaning of the word itself, Islam comes from the Arabic root letters SLM. And these letters fundamentally relate to peace and to submission. So in a theological sense, Islam quite simply means submission to Allah, but one true God. It's really described more as a state of being, rather than just some historical label.
And this idea is explicitly stated right in the source text. The Quran says, "Indeed, the religion in the sight of Allah is Islam." That's from Surah Ali Imran, chapter 3, verse 19. It's absolutely vital to understand this point. Islam presents itself in its own sources, not as some brand new religion entering the world stage, but as the universal baseline, the religion accepted and recognized by God since the very beginning of humanity.
It's fascinating to visualize how this continuous, glowing thread moves dynamically right through the eras. Islamic tradition teaches that God sent guidance to literally every nation, and that glowing thread? That represents Tawheed, which is the uncompromising worship of one God alone. In Islamic belief, figures like Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and finally Muhammad, they were all united in this exact same mission. Every single one of them preached submission to the one true God.
Which brings us to section 2, Abraham and pure monotheism. Let's see how this builds.
The text places massive, really massive importance on Abraham. Listen to chapter 3, verse 67. It reads, "Abraham was neither a Jew nor a Christian, but he was a true monotheist, a Muslim, and he was not among the polytheists." Islamic texts claim Abraham as the absolute original model of pure monotheism, well before any later religious labels came into play. Plus, the Quran teaches that Abraham and his son Ismail actually built the Kaaba in Mecca, specifically as a sanctuary for worshiping that one God. That deeply connects the Arabian Peninsula to the ancient Abrahamic tradition.
Moving on to section 3, the first revelation.
So, let's set the scene. We're in a period called Jahiliyyah, which translates to the age of ignorance. Society was going through severe moral decline. The Kaaba, which as we just said was built for monotheism, was now stuffed full of idols. Arabia was totally dominated by endless tribal wars, the poor were heavily oppressed, and destructive habits, like widespread alcohol and gambling, were just the everyday norm. Tragically, women had virtually no rights, and in some factions, newborn daughters were literally buried alive. It was a deeply, deeply fractured society that absolutely required a corrective message.
Enter the year 610 CE. Muhammad, a 40-year-old man from the ruling Quraysh tribe, was already known throughout Makkah as Al-Amin, the trustworthy. He was so troubled by the corruption around him that he would actually retreat to a place called the Cave of Hira, just to reflect in solitude. And it's in this quiet, isolated cave that everything changes. According to authentic hadith, the angel Jibril, or Gabriel, appeared to him with a profound command.
The angel commanded him to read. Now, when Muhammad replied that he wasn't a reader, the angel revealed the very first verses of the Quran. He said, "Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is the most generous." Those precise words right there, they mark the official historical beginning of Islam as the final revelation.
And the message that followed was incredibly disruptive to the status quo. It basically demanded 4 radical shifts: worshiping Allah alone without partners, rejecting idol worship entirely, establishing strict justice and moral behavior, and believing in a day of judgment. So this wasn't just abstract theology, It was a direct social and spiritual corrective aimed right at the economy and culture of Jahiliyyah. And this brilliantly illustrates the absolute core of Islamic belief, pure, uncompromising monotheism. Chapter 112, Surah Al-Ikhlas states, "Say, He is Allah, the One, Allah, the eternal refuge. He neither begets nor is born, and there is none comparable to Him." It is just a crystal clear, unmistakable declaration of God's absolute oneness. Now, what's really interesting is Section 4 ties to earlier revelations.
Right after that overwhelming first revelation in the cave, Muhammad returned home completely trembling. His wife, Khadija, comforted him, believed in him instantly, and then did something absolutely fascinating. She took him to her cousin, Waraka ibn Nawafal, who was a highly learned Christian scholar. Upon hearing the account, Waraka immediately recognized the divine link. He confirmed that the angel who appeared in the cave was the exact same angel that had been sent to Moses centuries earlier. Crazy, right?
And this historical link is cemented directly in the text of the Quran itself. Surah Ali Imran, verse 3 reads, "He has revealed to you the book in truth, confirming what was before it, and He revealed the Torah and the Gospel." The text imparts an explicit, undeniable confirmation of the original revelations given to the Jewish and Christian communities.
When we actually compare these traditions side by side, we find some deeply shared beliefs. Islam commands immense respect for prophets like Moses and Jesus and holds a strong belief in the original Torah and Gospel as divine revelations. But it's also important to note that the text draws strict theological boundaries. For instance, while Muslims believe Jesus was miraculously born and is indeed the Messiah, Islam firmly rejects the idea that He is God or the Son of God, maintaining that pure, unbroken line of strict monotheism.
So, the crucial point is how this all culminates in Section 5, the final monotheistic message.
Because this monotheistic message totally threatened the idol-worshipping economy of Mecca, the early Muslims faced severe, intense persecution, and this led to a defining historical moment in 622 CE. This is the Hijra, the famous migration of Prophet Muhammad and the Muslims to the city of Medina. It was so monumental, in fact, that the Islamic calendar actually begins here. It marks the transformation of a persecuted group into a growing, structured civilization.
And as that civilization grew, the texts firmly established the finality of its leader. Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 40, explicitly states, "Muhammad is not the father of any of your men, but he is the messenger of Allah and the final prophet." This is an absolutely core Islamic teaching. The idea that the long line of prophets, the one that started all the way back with Adam, comes to a definitive close with Muhammad.
But you might be wondering, if he's the final prophet, how does the message survive? Well, chapter 15, verse 9 states, "Indeed, we have sent down the reminder, and indeed we will preserve it." Muslims believe that this is the complete and final message precisely because the Quran itself is divinely guaranteed to be preserved from any human alteration throughout time. We're going to conclude our thematic arc with this incredibly powerful, summarizing verse from Surah Al-Anbiya. "And we have not sent you except as a mercy to the worlds." Islam presents itself not as some localized 7th century Arab phenomenon, but as a universal continuation, a final call of mercy asking all of humanity to return to the worship of one God. It really reframes the entire timeline we've been looking at today, doesn't it?
I want to leave you with this final thought. How does viewing these three global faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, as part of a single, continuous monotheistic tradition, change our understanding of world history? It completely shifts the perspective, revealing a deep, shared historical thread of belief that has fundamentally shaped our modern world. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this gave you a clear, structured understanding of the eternal message at the foundation of Islam.